Welcome to ATI ProMedia. We're talking markets. I'm Don Wick, along with Tommy Grisafi from Advanced Trading. Tommy, as always, we appreciate this chance to connect and talk about this trade, whether it's grain or what's happening on Wall Street, livestock. It's been another busy week as we take a look at the marketplace.
Absolutely. You know, I want to tease you, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to tell everyone that we're having audio problems today
With the radio guy, exactly.
with the
right.
radio guy.
Exactly.
I love it. Mr. Wick, favorite part of my Friday. 2 reasons. When you and I record, it means we're closer to being done and having a drink. And I don't even drink, but I could use one. Let's talk some serious stuff. We got grains going down. That stinks. We have feeders and cattle going up. That's awesome. The hog market's having a heck of a move. You probably have some DC things to talk about.
Yeah.
And we don't have a farm bill. What else? I spoke with farmers as I traveled last few weeks, and they're not really like when I say, "Aren't you mad you don't have farm bill?" They're like, whatever. You know, they're okay. They're not throwing a fit about it. But which way you want to take this?
Let's talk about maybe these outside markets. First of all, we saw the Dow move into some record territory, but really not a lot outside of that in some of those outside markets. What are you looking at?
That's a great point. We had a stock Microsoft hit a $3 trillion value. I mean, those are big numbers, Don. The S&P 500 all-time highs. Dow's flirting with them or just hit them. There's just money out there. As you know, I told you I hosted Scott the Cow Guy this week, and I had some of these guys he interviews are big time money managers from New York. And they said they have people, these are wealthy people, calling them daily saying, I have X amount of money to deploy. And I don't think it's 10 grand that they found. I mean, you're talking 7-digit money, and they want to be in the market. So making 5% at First State Bank in Mayville, North Dakota, that wasn't good enough for them. They want to be in these hot stocks. And as you and I know, everyone loves these big runners and high flyers till they're not high flying anymore, correct?
Yeah, exactly right. As far as the grain trade, we look like we have been chopping around this. The money flow seems to be the factor that's pushing this market to the downside. Is that true?
That's correct, Don. And you know that the funds went from big time long over the last few years to neutral to short. And they are big time short. The funds are as big of a short since 2019. That's when we look at corn, beans, wheat, oil, and meal. Biggest short since 2019, I believe. And they're not messing around. Now, we started to bounce this week in grains, and we are not ending well. I have live quotes up and charts up if we need them. These corn's down 4, March corn down 6, soybeans May and March down 13, no beans down 12, all the wheat's in trouble, down 15 in the board, KC 13. Anyway, the grains aren't doing well. Now let's talk about the one thing that's had an incredible run back up, and that would be Mr. Wick. Welcome to stage, feeder cattle. Feeder cattle, look at that bounce, Don.
Wow.
Incredible bounce. We've traded a lot higher prices earlier in the year, and we've come down, and we're remember that guy, that Italian guy, Fibonacci?
Yeah.
We're about halfway back to Mr. Fibonacci's levels, and this is it's a big deal. What are you hearing from the cattle guys out in your way?
Well, we are actually starting to see some cash cattle to the plus side here, which is optimistic. And I think that's one thing that helped push these futures higher this week, don't you think? Here
Yeah,
at the end of
yeah.
the week in particular.
And I talked to a friend of mine who is pretty connected in the cattle industry, has cattle, feeds cattle. He said that, remember how nice the weather was in November and December? They were just
Right.
having record gain and cattle markets getting crushed, and there were some serious problems. It went from weather's beautiful to, wow, is it miserable? Is it wet? Are pen conditions bad? Then it got cold. Then it got the worst you can get is snowy, cold, and windy. And the cattle were, using all those calories they're consuming just to stay warm. So instead of gaining a few pounds a day, they actually probably go the other way or at least stop. And what he told me, and you know this probably, but once a cattle is like in a cycle of gaining and it stops gaining like that, it can't just like restop and start gaining again. It just won't put on that extra 30, 40 pounds. So he said the cattle are coming in lighter, being processed a little lighter, and there's the same amount of cattle in the United States, but if you take 40, 50 pounds off of each of them, the
Right.
tonnage just isn't there. That's a pretty good explanation. He made it seem simple, and I went with it. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, Mr. Wick.
Well, think of it. We're looking at 30 degrees in Grand Forks, North Dakota at the end of January. That's unheard of. And it is just sloppy and wet outside. Those feedlots are muddy, they're wet, and it's still that chill in the air. It's hard to keep those cattle healthy, and like you said, they're not sitting at the feed bunk when the weather is this kind of situation.
Yeah, yeah, those guys are the best. I mean, the cattle industry, they work so hard. Sometimes they have calves die during birth, and they just incredible industry, and they don't get the recognition they should. But
Yeah,
I'll eat some steak this weekend and help them out for sure.
we're always doing what we can, right?
I are
Hey,
not. No one's going to put in the comment section. Speaking of comments, someone could drop us a comment there, right there. Drop us a comment if you want. Yeah, no one's going to feel bad for you and say Don Wick and Tommy Grisafi are starving themselves. Mr. Wick, in all seriousness, we're joking around today. I don't know why I'm just in a good mood. It's Friday. But we could joke around, right? We don't have to be
yeah,
sad because corn's down 5. We don't have to be. We're not on the airwaves at the Red River Farm Network with 20,000 people hearing us, and God knows I'm not on national live TV today. That was interesting, nonetheless. But I do want to thank you. You started this problem. You are the first person to ever put a mic in front of me and actually give me a decent interview and give me a chance. So, thank you. And look at me now, right?
yeah, exactly. Look what happened. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we're having
That's
fun, but we're providing content, and people want live content. The second you and I get done recording this, it'll be almost live. We'll put it out there. Most important thing you and I talk about every week, and your segments are going to move to where we record probably on Fridays and release them on Saturdays or later Friday evening. But what's going on in DC? Because that is real. Politically, Farm Bill, don't hold back.
Well, this week I had a chance to see a couple really big hitters as far as farm bill analysis. Joe Outlaw from Texas A&M is really the guru when it comes to farm bill. He's been a part of that process in helping to shape farm policy for lawmakers for decades. And also Tara Smith, and she works with Tory Associates, Michael Tory's lobbying group out of D.C., and she really works with the crop insurance folks. In fact, she was speaking in Fargo at a crop insurance meeting. And every time that we see this appropriation process delayed, it's pushing back the farm bill process. There was hope that we would get the farm bill moved to the House floor maybe in March. That doesn't look like it's going to happen. Both Outlaw and Smith talked about this might be a 2025 farm bill situation. The one thing that Smith talked about that I found interesting, I guess I didn't think about it, but in January, the House changed their rules. So it is an open rule situation, which means that any member can bring up amendments during the farm bill debate. Uh, Typically, in big issues like a farm bill, you would have a closed process, so you'd only have a limited number of amendments that could be offered. This open process could bring up a lot of controversial issues. Someone could throw out a so-called poison pill. There's a lot of things that can go wrong when you've got this open process with the amendment. So that could be another issue. Also, Tommy, just talking about the conflict, House Speaker Mike Johnson right now has two members in the plus side to his majority, only 2 seat margin. There are at least a dozen Republicans, dozen members of his own caucus that doesn't like what Michael Smith is or Johnson is doing every day. So it's going to be hard to get this farm bill up and over the hill as it relates to this the House side, and that's not even talking about what's up in the Senate. They're even moving a much slower pace than what we're thinking about in the House.
That's interesting. And when you see as many farmers as you do during this meeting season, it's definitely North Dakota's famous for meeting season because we need something to do in the winter.
Yeah.
What's the tone of the farmer? What are they saying? Whether it be grain prices, farm bill, cattle markets. Uh, I feel like the sugar boys have done extremely well last few years. I think they might get slapped if they complain. So, uh, what's going on out there in the mood of the farmer?
You know, I think the one thing I find interesting is these land prices still gets a lot of discussion. We're still seeing some of these land values in specific areas that are hitting record money in our territory. Now, it really depends on location. If you're in an area where there's a piece of ground that's some good competition for it, we are seeing some very high prices. It's getting a little spottier in some of the tougher ground. I talked with a gentleman with Red River Land Company this morning, and he mentioned the fact that he thinks moving forward, maybe some of this sugar beet ground will continue to remain strong, but it might get a little bit softer for some of the other type of commodities that we grow here in the valley.
Yeah, real quick, folks, while we're doing this live stream, of course, you can always catch us live at 9, ATI Pro Media. I put our numbers down there, Don, 1-855-737-FARM, or email us at info@ATI Pro Media. Of course, Mr. Don Wick is the owner-operator of Red River Farm Network. He has all types of ways to get a hold of him. And if you're not, you should be subscribed to his newsletter. Go to redriverfarmnetwork.com. So we covered DC, we covered the stock market, we covered cattle, we covered grains. Are we missing anything?
I want
Interest
you to tell
rates.
me about your experience this week with RFD. What was that like, Tommy?
It was fun. I was scared out of my mind. I'm a confident guy and insecure all bundled in one. And Scott asked me to if I'd do the show not only for one day but for 3. And I've been on the show. Like I'm going to be on the show today, right? But I'm in my basement, and I'm very comfortable in this environment. And it's live TV, so you have the ear monitor in. I've never in my life have used a teleprompter, and they trained me for 10 minutes Tuesday morning, and but Tuesday at 1:00, I was reading it live on national TV. I kind of felt like Ron Burgundy. And I said, like, I'm Ron Burgundy. And they're like, who put that? If you put it in the teleprompter, Burgundy's going to read it, right? And,
Too funny.
but I practiced that, and I'm going to practice that some more. And, the only thing I can say to anyone and everyone out there, if you own an iPhone or any phone, you're in the media business, hit play, hit record. You're not going to like the way you sound. You're not going to like you look. And just hit play. And there's so much opportunity in media, whether it's working with someone like you, or whether someone wants to own a radio station, or whether someone wants to start a podcast or a YouTube channel or anything else.
We
There's
need those folks telling our story in
We do,
agriculture.
not
Yeah.
only in ag but in health and fitness. I have a farmer client whose wife started a fitness company, and she called and asked for help in media. I'm like, this is pretty cool because I can actually help you. There's things I can tell you not to do. So the one thing I can tell you about my experience, Don, is that although you're on this giant set, Red River or RFD TV is based out of Nashville, right on Music Row.
Yeah.
And it's just really cool. You're about 1.5 miles north of Broadway, and you're on Music Row, and across the street there's Sony Records, and you can kind of tell everyone's fancy and playing guitar everywhere. And Tommy Grisafi comes in and do live TV, and they treat you well. When you film TV, there's 8 people in the booth up above you. I post a couple of pictures of social media, and there's 4 people helping produce and direct the show. And then you're on that stage all by yourself. It's very quiet and it's very lonely. But in the end, I got a kick out of doing it, and I hope I get another chance, right?
That was awesome. It's very cool to see that, Tommy. Appreciate the chance to connect here today, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.
Mr. Wick, thank you. As always, my wife, Gina G., wants to close the show with some comments, and my pleasure, sir. See you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. We're here every day, 9 a.m. Central. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.